The sharp sting of my daughter's words hit me like a rogue wave on a stormy December morning. "We're keeping Christmas intimate this year, Mom," Sarah had said, her voice a little too casual, a little too rehearsed. Intimate. The word echoed in the cavernous silence of my kitchen, each syllable a tiny shard of ice. Intimate. It wasn't just a word, it was a dismissal, a polite but firm ushering out of my most cherished role, the matriarch, the keeper of Christmas traditions, the architect of our family's festive gatherings. For years, our sprawling beach house, with its salt-kissed air and creaking floorboards, had been the heart of our holidays. It was where generations had celebrated, where laughter had mingled with the roar of the ocean, where the scent of my mother's gingerbread cookies had become synonymous with Christmas. And now, Sarah, my eldest, my firstborn, was suggesting intimate. It was code, I knew it. Code for, "Mom, you're not needed anymore." Code for, "We're moving on without you." The pain was immediate, a visceral jolt that bypassed logic and went straight for the jugular of my pride. My nest was already empty, my husband, bless his patient soul, content with quiet evenings. But Christmas was my domain. It was the one time a year I felt truly indispensable, and she was taking it away, replacing our grand, boisterous celebrations with what? A quiet dinner? A video call? The thought was unbearable. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, the cold glass a stark contrast to the heat rising in my cheeks. I needed to do something drastic, something that would shake things up, remind myself that I was still here, still a force to be reckoned with. And then a dangerous thought, born of hurt and a lifetime of nurturing, took root. The beach house. It was the ultimate symbol of our family's history, the repository of countless Christmas memories. If they wanted intimate, if they wanted to exclude me from the center of it all, then I would strip away the very stage upon which those traditions were performed. I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over the name of a local real estate agent I'd used before. Brenda. She was efficient, no nonsense, just what I needed. "Brenda," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I need to sell the beach house immediately. No showings, no open houses, just make it happen." There was a beat of silence on the other end. "Eleanor, are you sure? It's December, and the holidays." "I'm sure, Brenda," I interrupted, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess them. "Make me an offer, a good one. I want it gone before Christmas." The conversation was brief, almost surreal. I hung up, a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread coursing through me. I had done it. I had taken a sledgehammer to the very foundation of our family's Christmas. What would Sarah say? What would Mark, my husband, say? I didn't know, and in that moment, I didn't care. I was acting on instinct, a primal urge to protect what I felt was being taken from me. The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. Brenda, true to her word, worked miracles. A cash offer, surprisingly generous, came in within 48 hours. The buyers were a young couple, eager to start their own traditions. I signed the papers, my hand shaking, the ink a dark stain on the crisp white document. I didn't tell Sarah. I didn't tell Mark. I let the secret fester, a small, dark seed of rebellion growing inside me. I started packing, boxing up the Christmas decorations, the worn-out ornaments, the stacks of board games that had witnessed so many family battles and triumphs. Each item I touched brought a fresh wave of memories. The year little Timmy, Sarah's son, had insisted on wearing his Santa hat to bed for a week straight. The year Mark had attempted to build a gingerbread replica of the house, resulting in a leaning tower of sugary doom. The year my own mother, before she passed, had taught Sarah how to make her famous gingerbread, her hands gnarled with age, but her eyes sparkling with joy. These weren't just decorations, they were pieces of our history, tangible fragments of a shared past. And I was dismantling it all, piece agonizing piece. The guilt began to creep in, a cold, unwelcome guest. Had I gone too far? Was this revenge, pure and simple? But then I'd recall Sarah's words, her casual dismissal of our shared history, and the resolve would harden again. She wanted intimate? Fine, she would get intimate. She would get a Christmas stripped bare, devoid of the grand gestures and sprawling gatherings she seemed so eager to escape. The house itself seemed to mourn my decision. The usually cheerful wind chimes on the porch hung silent. The ocean breeze that usually whispered secrets through the open windows now felt like a mournful sigh. Even the seagulls seemed to cry a little louder, their calls echoing the ache in my own heart. I found myself lingering in rooms, running my hand over the faded wallpaper in the dining room, the one Sarah had helped me choose years ago. I traced the pencil marks on the doorframe in the hall, charting the growth of my children, and then Sarah's son, Timmy. Each imperfection, each worn spot was a testament to the life lived within these walls. And I was erasing it, erasing us. The closer the closing date loomed, the more the weight of my impulsive decision pressed down on me. I started to doubt myself. Was this really about Sarah wanting to exclude me, or was it about my own fear of being left behind, of my role diminishing as my children grew and built their own lives? The nido vacío syndrome, they called it, the empty nest. It had hit me harder than I'd ever admitted, leaving me feeling adrift, my purpose seemingly shrinking with each passing year. Christmas had become my anchor, the one event that guaranteed our family's reunion, my central role reaffirmed. And now, in a fit of wounded pride, I had sabotaged it. The week before Christmas, the new owners were scheduled to take possession. The house was empty, stripped of its festive soul. The only remnants of our Christmases past were the ghost images on the walls, the faint scent of pine and gingerbread clinging to the air. I sat on the bare floor of the living room, surrounded by stacked boxes, the silence deafening. Mark found me there, his brow furrowed with concern. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me, his presence a quiet comfort. Finally, I broke. The tears came hot and fast, a torrent of regret and fear. I confessed everything, the impulsive call to Brenda, the secret sale, the deep-seated heart that had fueled my actions. Mark listened patiently, his arm around my shoulders. When I finished, he simply said, "Eleanor, why didn't you talk to Sarah?" His question hung in the air, simple yet profound. It was the question I should have asked myself. I had let my pride, my fear, my assumptions run wild, and in doing so, I had created a rift where none needed to exist. The next day, I called Sarah. My voice was thick with unshed tears as I told her I had sold the beach house. The silence on her end was heavy, pregnant with unspoken emotions. Then she spoke, her voice not angry, but laced with a weariness I hadn't heard before. "Mom, why? You know how I feel about that house." I thought you didn't want us there anymore," I stammered, the words tasting like ash. "You said you wanted an intimate Christmas." Sarah sighed, a long, drawn-out sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. "Mom, intimate didn't mean without you. It meant smaller, simpler. I'm pregnant again." My breath hitched. "What? You didn't tell me." "I was going to," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I've been so sick. The nausea, the fatigue, The thought of hosting a big Christmas at our place with a toddler and a newborn on the way felt overwhelming. I thought maybe we could do something smaller, just us at your place, or even a quiet Christmas here. I didn't want to stress you out with the travel, especially this year. The world tilted on its axis, pregnant, overwhelmed, not excluding me, but trying to protect me, perhaps, from the stress of a difficult holiday. My carefully constructed narrative of rejection crumbled around me. All my assumptions, all my hurt, had been based on a misunderstanding, a colossal failure of communication. The beach house, the symbol of our traditions, had become the casualty of my own insecurity. "Oh, Sarah," I whispered, the tears finally falling freely. "I'm so sorry. I sold the house." The confession hung between us, heavy and devastating. Sarah was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, laced with a pain that mirrored my own. "You sold it? Without even asking me?" The accusation was fair. I had acted like a petulant child, lashing out in a way that hurt everyone, most of all myself. The days leading up to Christmas were filled with a profound sense of loss. The house was gone. Our traditions, as I knew them, were irrevocably changed. I had traded the warmth of shared memories for the cold reality of my own impulsivity. Christmas Eve arrived, and instead of the usual bustling preparations at the beach house, I found myself in my own, much smaller living room. Mark had done his best to create a festive atmosphere, but it felt hollow. Sarah and her husband, Tom, arrived with their son Leo, a whirlwind of toddler energy. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Leo, bless his oblivious heart, ran around, his excited squeals a stark contrast to the heavy silence between his mother and me. We exchanged gifts, polite and perfunctory. The usual warmth, the easy banter, was absent. I watched Sarah, her face pale and drawn, and my heart ached with a guilt so profound it was almost physical. This was my doing. I had fractured our family's Christmas. As Leo unwrapped a toy train, he let out a triumphant shout. "Choo-choo!" Sarah managed a weak smile. "He's so excited," she murmured. "He loves trains." I looked at the train, a simple, brightly colored toy. It wasn't a grand, multi-generational tradition. It was just a train. And in that moment, something shifted within me. Maybe intimate wasn't a bad thing. Maybe it was an opportunity for something new. "You know," I said, my voice surprisingly clear, "I remember when you were little, Sarah, and you got your first toy train. It was a little wooden one, painted red." Sarah looked up, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "I do?" "Yes," I continued, emboldened. "You were obsessed with it. You carried it everywhere. You even tried to feed it mashed potatoes." A small laugh escaped Sarah. "I did, didn't I?" Tom chuckled. "She still has a thing for trains, apparently." Leo, sensing the shift in mood, brought his new train over to me. "Mommy, Grandma, choo-choo," he insisted. I took the train, the plastic cool against my palm. "Well, Leo," I said, a genuine smile finally gracing my lips, "this looks like a very important train. It needs a special track." I looked at Sarah. "We don't have the beach house anymore, but we still have this living room, and we have Leo, and we have each other. Maybe intimate means focusing on what truly matters." Sarah's eyes welled up. "Mom, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you about the pregnancy sooner. I was so overwhelmed, and I didn't want to put any pressure on you." "And I'm sorry I sold the house," I replied, the words finally freeing me. I let my pride get the better of me. I was so afraid of losing my role, of being left behind, that I lashed out. We sat there, the three of us, surrounded by wrapping paper and the lingering scent of Christmas cookies I'd baked earlier that day. Leo chugged his train around our feet, his innocent joy a balm to our wounded hearts. We talked, really talked. Sarah explained her anxieties about the new baby, the financial strain, the exhaustion of raising a toddler. I shared my own fears of aging, of feeling irrelevant, of the profound emptiness left by my children's departure. It wasn't a grand, dramatic reconciliation, but a quiet, honest exchange. We acknowledged our mistakes, our assumptions, our fears. And in that shared vulnerability, a new kind of intimacy was forged. We decided to create new traditions. That Christmas, we built a magnificent fort in the living room out of blankets and pillows, complete with Christmas lights string inside. Leo was ecstatic. We played board games, Leo's giggles filling the space once occupied by my silent anxieties. We made gingerbread cookies, not in the grand kitchen of the beach house, but on my smaller, more manageable countertop. Sarah, despite her morning sickness, helped, her hands covered in flour, a faint smile playing on her lips. It wasn't the Christmases of the past, but it was ours. It was real, and it was filled with a deeper, more meaningful connection. The beach house was gone, a painful reminder of my impulsive act. But in its absence, something more valuable had emerged. A renewed understanding with my daughter, a recognition of our shared vulnerabilities, and the quiet strength of a family adapting, evolving, and finding joy in new, simpler ways. The sale of the beach house, born of hurt and misunderstanding, had inadvertently led to a profound healing. It had forced us to confront our assumptions, to communicate honestly, and to redefine what Christmas truly meant to us. It wasn't about the size of the gathering or the grandeur of the setting. It was about the love, the connection, and the willingness to adapt. As the new year dawned, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. The empty nest was still empty, but it no longer felt like a void. It felt like a space waiting to be filled with new memories, new traditions, and the enduring love of family. The sting of Sarah's intimate comment had faded, replaced by the quiet understanding that sometimes the most profound connections are forged not in grand gestures, but in the simple, vulnerable act of truly seeing and hearing each other. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. I still missed the beach house, the scent of salt and pine, the echoes of laughter on the porch. But I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that the heart of our family wasn't in a building. It was in us. It was in our willingness to forgive, to understand, and to keep building traditions, no matter how small, no matter how intimate. The future held new challenges, new joys, and undoubtedly new misunderstandings. But now, I knew we could face them together, armed with honesty, empathy, and the quiet strength of a love that had weathered a storm and emerged not unscathed, but stronger. The house was sold, the traditions altered, but the family, in its most essential form, remained. And that was more than enough. It was everything. We had lost a house, but we had found something far more precious, a deeper connection, a more resilient love, and the quiet understanding that intimacy, in its truest sense, was about being truly present for one another, especially during the holidays. The finality of the sale still tugged at me sometimes, a pang of regret for the lost memories. But then Leo would demand another game of choo-choo, or Sarah would lean her head on my shoulder, and the regret would recede, replaced by a quiet gratitude for the present moment. We were building something new, brick by emotional brick, a testament to our ability to adapt and to love. The Christmas after the sale was different, yes. It lacked the familiar grandeur of the beach house, the sprawling dining table, the echoing laughter in the high-ceilinged rooms. But it possessed a different kind of warmth, a more concentrated glow. We celebrated in my cozy living room, a space that had always felt like home, but had never before hosted the full spectrum of our family's festive spirit. Leo, now a year older, was an even more enthusiastic participant, his boundless energy a constant source of amusement and, frankly, exhaustion. He declared the sofa his castle, and demanded we all pay royal tribute in the form of cookie offerings. Sarah, though still navigating the early stages of a new pregnancy, seemed more relaxed, her initial anxieties having given way to a quiet determination to embrace the present. We talked about the upcoming baby, about nursery colors, about names. These were conversations we might have had at the beach house, but they would have been interspersed with the usual holiday chaos. Here, they were the focus, intimate and unhurried. Tom, Sarah's husband, proved to be a surprisingly adept gingerbread architect, his creation far surpassing Mark's previous structurally unsound attempts. We laughed, truly laughed, at the absurdity of it all, at the simple joy of being together. I watched them, my daughter, her husband, my grandson, and a wave of emotion washed over me. This was it. This was the intimate Christmas Sarah had spoken of, not as an exclusion, but as a desire for closeness, for a simpler, more meaningful celebration. I had been so caught up in my own perceived obsolescence, my fear of fading into the background, that I had completely missed her true intention. The beach house, with all its associated memories and traditions, had become a symbol of a past I was clinging to, a past I feared was slipping away. By selling it, I had, in a way, forced myself to let go. And in letting go, I had made space for the new. The closing of the beach house chapter wasn't just about selling a property. It was about acknowledging that families evolve, that traditions change, and that the essence of connection lies not in permanence, but in presence. We exchanged gifts, and the usual polite appreciation was replaced by genuine understanding. Sarah had given me a beautiful locket with photos of her, Tom, and Leo inside. "For all the memories we've made, Mom," she'd said, her eyes shining, "and for all the ones we're going to make." It was a simple gift, but it spoke volumes. It acknowledged the past while embracing the future. My gift to her was a collection of my mother's recipes, beautifully bound, along with a promise to teach her every single one. It was my way of passing on a legacy, not tied to a physical place, but to the enduring spirit of family. The days following Christmas were quieter, filled with reflection. Mark and I sat by the fire, the silence comfortable and companionable. "You know," he said, "selling that house was the best thing that could have happened." I looked at him, surprised. "Really? After everything?" "Yes," he affirmed. "It forced a conversation we desperately needed to have. It stripped away the grand gestures and reminded us of what truly matters. You and Sarah, you're closer now than you've been in years." He was right. The raw honesty that had emerged from the ashes of my impulsive decision had cleared the air, allowing for a deeper, more authentic connection. The guilt I had carried for weeks began to dissipate, replaced by a quiet sense of gratitude. I had made a mistake, a big one, but it had led to a profound lesson. I learned that my worth as a mother, as a matriarch, wasn't tied to the upkeep of a beach house or the orchestration of elaborate holiday gatherings. It was in my ability to love, to adapt, and to be present for my family in whatever form that took. The finality of the sale, the handing over of the keys, had been a moment of profound loss. But the subsequent conversations, the shared vulnerability, and the creation of new, intimate traditions was a profound gain. We had lost a symbol, but we had found a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The Christmas that followed the sale was in many ways more meaningful than any before it. It was smaller, yes, quieter, certainly, but it was filled with an intimacy born not of obligation, but of genuine connection. Leo, the catalyst for so much of this change, was a bundle of pure joy, his laughter echoing through my home. He had his own castle now, a magnificent blanket fort constructed with the help of his dad and grandpa, adorned with twinkling fairy lights. Sarah, despite her pregnancy fatigue, embraced the slower pace, her focus shifting from the how of hosting to the who of being together. We spent hours talking, sharing stories, and planning for the new baby. The anxieties that had once fueled my own fear of exclusion were replaced by a shared anticipation. Tom, bless his patient soul, took on the role of chief gingerbread architect, his creations a testament to meticulous planning and a surprising artistic flair. Mark, ever the steady presence, provided the warmth and humor that had always been the bedrock of our family gatherings. The absence of the beach house was palpable, a ghost in the periphery. Yet its absence also created a vacuum that we, as a family, filled with something new. We played board games with a ferocity usually reserved for holiday tournaments. We baked cookies, the scent of cinnamon and sugar filling my kitchen, a comforting aroma that transcended any particular location. We exchanged gifts, and the focus shifted from the material to the meaningful. Sarah gave me a beautiful handmade journal. "For all the stories you still need to write, Mom," she said, her eyes full of love. It was a poignant reminder that my role was not diminishing, but evolving. My gift to her was a promise to be there, truly present, for every milestone, every challenge, every joy. The sale of the beach house, initially a rash act fueled by wounded pride, had become an unexpected catalyst for healing. It had forced a confrontation with my own insecurities and fears, and in doing so had paved the way for a deeper, more authentic connection with my daughter and my family. The intimacy Sarah had craved wasn't about excluding me, it was about prioritizing connection, about simplifying the celebration to its essential core: love, family, and presence. As the days of that first post-sale Christmas unfolded, I realized that the beach house, while holding a treasure trove of memories, was not the sole repository of our family spirit. That spirit resided in us, in our shared history, our enduring love, and our capacity for forgiveness and understanding. The act of selling the house, though born of a misunderstanding, had ultimately liberated us all. It had freed Sarah from the pressure of grand hosting, freed me from the anxieties of a diminishing role, and freed us as a family to redefine our traditions on our own terms. The quiet moments, the shared laughter, the simple act of being together, these were the new cornerstones of our celebrations. And as I looked around at my family, truly seeing them, I knew this was a Christmas and a future far richer than any I could have imagined. The house was gone, but the foundation of our family, tested and strengthened, remained. The closing of the beach house chapter was, in retrospect, not an ending, but a poignant, albeit painful, beginning. It had forced a reckoning with my own deep-seated fears of irrelevance and a desperate need to cling to my identity as the matriarch. Sarah's seemingly casual remark about an intimate Christmas had struck a raw nerve, triggering a cascade of assumptions and a desperate impulsive act. Selling the house, the symbol of generations of family gatherings, felt like a drastic measure, a way to reclaim control when I felt my world shrinking. The ensuing days were a whirlwind of logistics, a surreal detachment as I signed away the physical embodiment of so many cherished memories. The scent of salt and sea, the creak of the wooden floors, the familiar worn patches on the carpet, they all seemed to whisper their farewells as I packed away the Christmas decorations, each ornament a tiny vessel of history. Guilt gnawed at me, a persistent companion. Had I truly understood Sarah, or had I allowed my own insecurities to dictate my actions? The tension with my daughter was palpable, a silent chasm that grew wider with each passing day. The stark reality of a Christmas without the beach house loomed, a bleak prospect that amplified my regret. It wasn't until Christmas Eve, amidst the quiet hum of my own living room, that the truth began to surface. Sarah, her face etched with exhaustion, but her eyes filled with a newfound vulnerability, finally revealed the real reason behind her desire for an intimate Christmas. The pregnancy, the nausea, the overwhelming fatigue. It wasn't about excluding me, but about navigating a challenging time with a focus on what truly mattered. The revelation was a stark reminder of my own flawed perspective, my tendency to project my fears onto others. The sale of the beach house, a monument to my pride and impulsivity, had inadvertently created the very distance I feared. But in that moment of raw honesty, a path to reconciliation began to emerge. We talked, truly talked, for the first time in weeks. We acknowledged our mistakes, our assumptions, our unspoken fears. We spoke of my anxieties about aging and Sarah's fears about motherhood. And in that shared vulnerability, a new foundation was laid. We decided to create new traditions, not in the grand setting of the beach house, but in the intimate embrace of my own home. We built a magnificent blanket fort, Leo's delighted squeals filling the air. We baked cookies, the familiar scent a comforting balm. We exchanged gifts, each one a testament to our renewed understanding. Sarah's journal, a symbol of my evolving role, and my promise to pass down my mother's recipes, a bridge between past and future. The beach house was gone, a painful but necessary sacrifice. Yet in its absence, we had found something far more precious, a deeper connection, a more resilient love, and the quiet strength of a family that had weathered a storm and emerged not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. The intimacy Sarah had sought wasn't an exclusion, but an invitation to focus on what truly mattered, each other. And in accepting that invitation, we had rediscovered the true spirit of Christmas, a spirit that resided not in a place, but in the hearts of those we loved. The aftermath of selling the beach house was a stark lesson in the destructive power of assumptions and the healing balm of honest communication. My impulsive decision, born from a fear of obsolescence and a wounded pride, had nearly fractured our family's most cherished tradition. The initial shock of Sarah's intimate comment had sent me spiraling, my mind conjuring images of exclusion and a fading role as matriarch. The beach house, a repository of decades of Christmases, had become the unintended pawn in my emotional turmoil. Selling it without a word, a drastic and impulsive act, had created a chasm between Sarah and me, a silent tension that hung heavy in the air as December progressed. The logistics of the sale, the signing of papers, the packing of memories, it all felt like a surreal dream, a detached performance of grief and regret. Each box of ornaments, each worn-out board game was a pang of remembrance, a stark reminder of what I was sacrificing. The guilt was a constant hum beneath the surface, a growing awareness of my own flawed reaction. When Christmas Eve finally arrived, the absence of the familiar beach house was a palpable void. My own living room, usually a cozy haven, felt strangely inadequate, the silence amplifying the tension between Sarah and me. Leo, oblivious to the adult drama, was a whirlwind of innocent excitement, his presence a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere. It was during Leo's enthusiastic unwrapping of a new toy train, his delighted choo-choo cutting through the quiet, the dam finally broke. Sarah, her voice thick, her pregnancy, the debilitating nausea, the overwhelming exhaustion. Her desire for an intimate Christmas wasn't a rejection of our family traditions or my role, but a desperate need for simplicity and support during a challenging time. The revelation was a profound shock, a mirror reflecting the depth of my own misjudgment. My impulsive act, fueled by ego and insecurity, had caused unnecessary pain and created a rift where none needed to exist. The subsequent conversation was a catharsis, a pouring out of fears and anxieties. I confessed my fear of fading relevance, my struggle with the empty nest syndrome. Sarah shared her anxieties about motherhood, the financial pressures, the sheer exhaustion of her condition. In that shared vulnerability, the walls we had built crumbled. We acknowledged our mistakes, forgave each other, and began the process of rebuilding. We decided to forge new traditions, centered not on a place, but on presence. The blanket fort became our festive centerpiece, a symbol of shared imagination and simple joy. The gingerbread baking, once a grand affair at the beach house, became a more intimate, laughter-filled activity in my kitchen. Gift-giving shifted from material abundance to heartfelt meaning. Sarah's journal and my promise to share my mother's legacy were tangible representations of our renewed connection. The sale of the beach house, initially a symbol of loss, transformed into a symbol of our resilience. It had forced us to confront our assumptions, to communicate honestly, and to redefine the essence of our family celebrations. The intimacy Sarah had sought was not an exclusion, but an invitation to a deeper, more authentic connection. And in accepting that invitation, we had discovered that the heart of Christmas, the true spirit of family, resided not in grand gestures or familiar settings, but in the quiet strength of love, understanding, and shared presence. The beach house was gone, but the foundation of our family, tested and strengthened, remained. It was a testament to the fact that even amidst painful misunderstandings, love and communication can pave the way for healing and the creation of new, cherished traditions. My daughter's words, once a source of deep hurt, had become a catalyst for profound growth, and a reminder that true intimacy lies in the willingness to be vulnerable and to truly see each other. And that, I realized, was the most precious gift of all.